Chavrusa Daf.
Okay, today's daf is Lamed Vav. Amazing. We are on the bottom of Lamed Hey Amid Beis. Okay, I actually did a little bit of this already, so I will start and be a Rebbe.
All right.
Okay, in the Mishnah on Lamed Dalet Amid Beis, Rebbe Kiva discussed this idea that when you combine permissible foods together with the forbidden grape products, that can make up the critical measure for which a Nazir is subject to Malchus. Right? If you have the bread dipped in the wine, then you are over on Malchus.
Right.
Now,
He says feels sharpie to behind me.
Amar Rabbi Abo said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Isurin Shabbat Torah, in regards to all the Isurim in the Torah, Ein Heter Mitzdaref LeIsur, the permitted does not combine with the forbidden to compose the minimum punishable quantity, Chutz Meisur and Nazir, except in the case of the Nazir. Why? What's so special about Nazir that we combine mutter to forbidden and then give him lashes? Shari Amra Torah Mishras. The Torah, as you see in note 20, is saying that the pasuk says, "V'chol mishras anavam lo yishted," nor may he drink anything infused with grapes. This teaches that a Nazir is liable for eating bread that has been soaked in wine. Now, if the bread has been absorbed a kazayis of wine, there's no need for the Torah to inform us that the Nazir is liable. It is obvious that he's liable, since by eating the bread he has ingested a kazayis of wine. The Torah must refer then to, first of all, I don't know if that's so obvious, but okay. The Torah, he did ingest it. The Torah must refer then to where the wine and the bread is less than a punishable quantity. Right. Nevertheless, since the wine together with the bread does add up to a punishable quantity, the Nazir is liable for eating it, since permissible items combine with forbidden ones to constitute a punishable quantity.
Yeah, I agree with the "it is obvious" thing. I think they must be pulling that straight from the Rashi because,
Yeah.
our Torah didn't say that. Say even that obvious part.
Oh.
I bet, that whole Havamina.
Look at note 19, which is referring to except in the case of Nazir's permission. I wrote, interesting. For example, if a Nazir eats a kazayis of grapes together with a half a kazayis of bread, he is liable even though the bread portion of the kazayis is permitted to him.
Yeah.
With respect to the Nazir's permissions, then permissible items combine with forbidden ones to compose the critical punishment quantity.
Yeah.
In providing the example of a Nazir who eats a half a kazayis of grapes together with a half kazayis of bread, Rush follows Rashi's view in Psachim that Rabbi Kiva applies this rule even where permitted and forbidden items stand alone. How Tosfos to Psachim, however, limit this principle in cases in which the permitted and forbidden items were mixed together, such as in the case of bread soaked in wine.
Explain.
Rabbi Kiva applies his rule even where the permitted and forbidden items stand alone.
Oh, okay. So
meaning that they're not infused.
You eat the piece of bread and then you eat the piece
and the wine. Right.
Wine. So interesting. This is the only place in the Torah. It's good to know. Nazir is where we're mitzdaref to.
We're about to bring a second and a third case, and we'll explain those, which I find it to be interesting. Little pocket-sized gemaras we're going into.
Cool.
And then we go into something longer.
All right.
Zeiri Amar, Zeiri says, Av Sa'ar Bival Taktiru. This combination principle applies even to leaven with regard to the prohibition of do not burn leaven on the altar. This is another isser in which there is combination. And Zeiri says, don't think it's only by Nazir where we're mitzdaref two things, a mutter and an aser, but even regards to burning leaven on the altar. And we're going to go to note 1 now. Right. Zeiri refers to the isser in Vayikra, which states, Kol hamincha asher takrivu la'Hashem, lo sa'aseh chametz ki chol sa'ar v'chol devash, lo saktir mimenu isha la'Hashem. Any meal offering that you shall offer to Hashem shall not be made of chametz, for all leaven and all honey. You may not burn it on the altar as an offering to Hashem. Now, Zeiri is following the view that burning on the altar denotes at least a kazayis of offering. Moreover, the kazayis need not consist entirely of chametz. Thus, one who burns on the altar a half a kazayis of chametz, along with an equal quantity of matzah, unleavened bread, is liable to lashes. Accordingly, the Zeiri observes that the combination principle applies with respect to this prohibition as well. Kazayis is the minimal punishable quantity. However, that quantity can be a combination of forbidden and permitted components. Now, in accordance with whom did Zeiri make this statement? Rebbe Lazar, the Darish Kol, because he did it like Rebbe Lazar, who expounds the word all. Now, let us go to note 2 to see a third case in which Ze'iri is that Rebbe Lazar was referring to, and he says Ze'iri holds like Rebbe Lazar in a third case. Ze'iri's statement, which assumes that there is a minimum punishable quantity in regards to the Isra of do not burn chametz on the altar, and that non-chametz can contribute to this quantity, is clearly based on a brisa in Menachos and Psachim, which expounds the pasuk Ki chol se'or lo saktiru, which we mentioned in note 1. For all leaven you may not burn, in which the words for all seems to be superfluous, as follows. Kol teaches that burning even a part of the usual amount is included in the prohibition. The additional word ki, for, teaches that one is liable even if he burns a mixture of leaven and non-leaven. What does the brisa mean by part and mixture? Rav and Menachos explains as follows. The standard mincha offering procedure calls for a kometz of the offering to be separated and burnt on the altar. A kometz, which is the amount that fills the hollow formed by the bending the 3 middle fingers over the palm, is equal to at least 2 kazesim. When I was learning this, I was like, you for sure know what I had you like doing this, and I was like, you for sure know it. Thus, when the pasuk indicates that one is liable for burning chametz on the altar, even if it is only part of the usual amount burnt, the meaning is that one incurs lashes for burning a mere kazayis of chametz on the altar. Mixture then refers to the composition of that very kazayis. Even if it is only part chametz, one is liable for burning it on the altar. Thus, by including a mixture of chametz in the prohibition, this brisa teaches that the non-chametz component of the kazayis combines with the chametz component to form the minimum kazayis quantity needed for lashes to be incurred for burning chametz on the altar. Fine. Now, that was what Ze'iri was. That's what Rebbe Lazar learns out from all. But we have to read further into note 3. Now, the Gemara in Psachim states that this brisa represents... Now, the Gemara in Psachim states that this brisa represents the view of Rebbe Lazar, who expounds the word kol, all, including additional items in this law. We find this to be Rebbe Lazar's view in regard to eating chametz on Pesach. This is the third time we're going to see a combination, where he expounds the expression, kol machmetzes lo yisochelu, all leaven you shall not eat, to indicate that one is forbidden to eat Pesach, even mixtures of chametz, such as Babylonian kutach, a type of dip containing whey and stale breadcrumbs, and Median beer, which was prepared from barley. Accordingly, in regards to the verse, for all leaven you may not burn it on the altar, Rebbe Lazar would also expound that word all to teach the law of partial amount, and thus have the word for to teach the law of mixture. Okay? So now we see, if we go past the brackets, accordingly, the Gemara here states that Ze'iri, who counts the Brisa's law concerning burning chametz on the altar as another example of the combination principle, is making his statement in accordance with the view of Rebbe Lazar, since he expounds the word all, is the author of that Brisa. So, before we get to the obvious question as to why Ze'iri only mentioned it about this mixture case by the burning leaven on the altar, why doesn't he mention the combination? Rabbi Kiva said it only applies to Nazir. Ze'iri comes along and says, it also applies this idea of combination that will give you lashes also by burning leaven on the Mizbeach.
Okay.
Now, where does he learn it from? He learns it out from Rebbe Lazar, who darshans the word kol. Kol over here, kol over there. You can dash. Wait a second. If so, Ze'iri should say, the combination principle applies to both burning it on the altar and in regards to eating chametz. Why did he add only the case of burning leaven on the altar?
Because it says kol there also.
It says kol there also, but also, we learn out that you can be chayiv with a mixture of permissible and prohibitable. Ein hachinami. Indeed, it is so. Ze'iri could have used the prohibition against eating chametz as another example of the combination principle. El lafuke mi baye. But he focused on the do not burn prohibition in order to emphasize that he means to exclude the view of Abaye. What did Abaye say? Damar yesh haktar befachas mixayis, who says that there's a liability for burning on the altar, less than a kazayas of the chametz offering. Kamash Malan ein haktar b'pachas mixayas. Therefore, Zair is like, yes, I do agree. In the third case with Rabbi Lazar, of course you can be chayiv if you mix chametz by eating it, and part of it's not chametz and it matches the kazayas. But I want to emphasize this case of beval taktiru because Abaye is wrong. I want to emphasize that you need to have a kazayas volume on the mizbeach in order to be chayiv, and if you don't have that kazayas, even though it could be a mixture of both, you are not chayiv. And Abaye says you are chayiv. That's why Ziri says it regarding this. Do you find now that I know it, that like you're missing that like the awareness, like the working,
the digging in, the research.
Like it's more being spoon-fed for you, and I'm not like struggling through it. So you either have to get it, or you're going to slow me down.
There's two parts. One, it's like, oh, it's right. I don't have to work as hard to get it. So it's a less of a geschmack maybe. But then it's also actually I'm getting it. I'm hearing it. So it's actually you're saying it in a way that's just accurate. And then I'm like, okay, wait. Let's say I spaced out. So they're like, okay, let's look at my Abaye. That's why he was saying it specifically by the Sa'ar, right? Because
in a Chanami, of course.
He would hold also.
Yeah, it's the same call.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now I did a little bit more.
Okay.
A very little more. So I'm going to be back to struggling.
It's good.
Yasser Ravdimi.
Okay, Shir's going to be home in an hour.
Oh, that's the Rebbitzin. Excellent. Now we are going to continue weiter on Lamed Vav Amid Aleph. We are now 5 lines down, 2 words to the end. Yosef Ravdimi v'kamer la lahashmata.
Shmata.
That's the way it's pronounced. Ravdimi was sitting and relating this report.
He's relating the Shmata.
Yes, the Shev Shmaisa,
Yeah.
Rav Yochanan's statement.
During his Shevrachas.
Was it?
The Shev Shmaitza.
That was written during Shevrachas?
There were 7 Shmaitzas, right?
Oh,
Shev Shmaitzas.
Okay.
He wrote one each day of his Shevrachas.
Are you supposed to spend time with the Kala? Maybe she was...
You know what? Maybe she was like, she wanted
That's
that.
That's intense. That's a lot of writing. So Rav Dimi was sitting and relating this report. Which report? Rav Yochanan's statement that the combination principle applies only to Nazir's prohibitions. Azay Zak Darash. Eisvei Abaye. Abaye is standing in front of Rav Dimi, and he challenges him from the following Mishnah. I want to read note 6 because I do think it brings validation. Right. Very important. Abaye points out an apparent contradiction between Rabbi Yochanan's statement that the combination principle applies only to the Nazir prohibitions and what Rabbi Yochanan said in the course of a discussion about the Mishnah in Tvul Yom.
And we're about to say that Mishnah, right?
Tvul Yom in Masechta?
Yeah.
Wow. Abaye relates that entire discussion until he reaches Rabbi Yochanan's comment that seems to present a contradiction. The presentation of Abaye's challenge is therefore somewhat lengthy, and the point of the question is reached only on the beginning of Lamed Vav Amid Beis.
No way.
Yes. It's not that long, because it's a very short...
It's a short Amid.
It's a short Amid, but there is some length to this.
You got to hold on.
So you got to hold on. Don't get too lost in the cereal bowl. And speaking of cereal bowl, this Mishnah in Tvul Yom, our first snort, Hamikba Shel Truma. If the porridge, and I am a big fan of porridge. So yes, huge fan of farina. I don't know anyone. No, farina. I like oatmeal, but farina specifically, I don't know anywhere in the 5 towns you can get farina.
I literally had a box of farina.
You threw it out
7 years ago, just because it was just there.
Yeah.
We finally threw it out. About like a few.
What was your reason for buying it? Did you buy it?
I think we bought it for a baby.
Oh, the baby. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's like baby food.
Yeah. Sure. So this is really where I got up to. Like I started looking. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yasser of Din V'Kamer La Shmaitza, and it seems to be a stira. So again, Rabbi Yochanan was the one who said, "Kol Srin Shabbatari and Heter Mitzaref LaEser Chutz Misir Nazir," and now we're about to bring a stira to that. Eisvei Abaye HaMikvah Shel Truma. The porridge or farina consists primarily of truma. Hashem Shel Chulin. The garlic and the oil are chulin. You put garlic and oil in your farina?
No, but I do put. When I was younger, I put salt in.
Okay.
With milk, but now milk and sugar.
Milk and sugar.
But milk and salt is something people should try.
So imagine, let's say we could just switch that in if you want. Milk and sugar of chulin. The nagat Tvul Yom and a Tvul Yom touched part of them, part of the porridge. So if you want to know what a Tvul Yom is, Literally means
truma
one who
can only
immerses
be
himself
eaten
in
by
it.
a kohen,
Right.
and it's forbidden for human consumption if it's contaminated with tuma. So
Right.
this porridge is truma, and mixed in is garlic and oil.
Which is fine. It's chulin. It's not tameh. It's
Right.
just ordinary. It doesn't have truma status.
Oh, it's seasoned with chulin, but
Yeah.
that doesn't make it usher to the kohen or tummy.
It's not tameh.
Right,
This is chulin.
right.
Tahar
It's just
chulin.
ordinary.
There's
Okay.
tameh chulin, tar chulin, and tameh truma and tar truma.
And there's something called tful yain.
So let's see what a tul yam is. It's a person who has immersed himself that day in the mikvah in order to purify himself from a state of tumah. Though his immersion is complete, he retains a residue of his tumah until nightfall, at which time his purification is complete. Between the immersion and nightfall, he is a tful yom, and he disqualifies truma that he touches from being eaten. So what's the status of this truma? The person touches the truma before his immersion, while he's still tameh, the truma becomes tameh, obviously, right? He was tameh. I.e., it has the capacity to transmit tumah. It has received two foods that it in turn touches. So it's what is it called? The rishon l'tumah. After his immersion, however, the person merely disqualifies the truma by touching it. So it's paisel. The truma itself cannot be eaten, but it cannot transmit the disqualification of any further. Although the touch of a tful yom has no effect. So also, the touch of a tful yom has no effect on ordinary food. So if he
touches the garlic and the oil separately,
sure.
Maybe that's where we're going.
Oh, okay. I like.
I don't know. But if he touches the porridge, then that becomes puzzle, not tummy. Becomes
Correct.
puzzle.
So by the way,
can't eat it.
Yeah, I forgot, but now I'm remembering the term tameh. When you hear the term tameh, it means
It has the capacity to transmit
to be metamet, right? Versus like something just puzzle, you can't eat it. But if you touch it, it's not going to make you tameh. Okay, so oh, so you have to remember. Continue going, Binyomin.
And he touched part of the porridge.
So he touched part of the porridge. Puzzle is kulin. It's disqualified the entire porridge.
Let's do 9. The plural mitzasan, literally part of them, is used because the porridge contains 3 ingredients: grain, oil, and garlic. Number 10.
Since the porridge consists primarily of truma produce and is a single mass, it is treated as a single entity of truma and is disqualified in its entirety if a tful yom touches a single part. The mission informs us that we do not view the minority ingredients of ordinary oil and garlic that are blended with the mixture as separators between the particles of truma grain. Were they considered separators, the tful yom would not disqualify more than the place actually touched, as in the next case. Okay. So, I'm not sure exactly where this is going yet. So we just said, though, if he touches part of it, tful yom touches part of it, it puzzles the whole thing. Mikvah shel chulin, however, the porridge was chulin, ordinary produce. Vashem hashemen shel truma, right? It was spiced with the truma. B'naga tful yom b'mikzasan, and the tful yom touched part of it. Lo pasal ela makamagai. He's disqualified only the place of his touch. At first glance, the mission means that since the ordinary produce is the main component of the porridge in the second case, the minority truma ingredients are considered subordinate to the ordinary produce and become legally nullified to bittul. Right? It's batal. Accordingly, the porridge is viewed as non-truma entity, which cannot be disqualified by the touch of the tful yom. But let's see what it really is. Okay. So, like pasal al-makam magoi. When we learned this mission, we asked on it, makam magoi, am I pasal? Why is the place that he touched pasal in the second case? The porridge in the second case is considered ordinary, then even the place of a tful yom's touch should not be disqualified because the whole thing is not one mixture, and the truma portion should be bottled to the chulin porridge.
Meaning the garlic and the oil is so insignificant.
Exactly.
That it should be bottled.
Right.
Why is that place? Okay.
Matam. What's the reason? Because a non-Kohen is liable to lashes for eating it in the amount of an olive's volume. A non-Kohen who willfully eats a kazayas of truma is subject to lashes. Likewise, Rabbi Yochanan states that if a non-Kohen eats this truma spiced porridge in the amount of a kazayas, so again, only the spice is the truma part, he's subject to lashes. Oh, this is Rabbi Yochanan. Okay. In other words, contrary to our previous understanding, the minority truma component of the porridge is not nullified to it. Do you hear that?
Yeah, you're basically combining the two and now making the non-kohen liable. So you are combining puzzle and permitted and making him liable, even though
This is not a Nazir.
Even though it's not a kazai. Mechatesi. Maybe the olive's volume is the garlic and the oil that is actually a kazayas. You said that, the porridge makes up most of it, but you can have a significant amount of oil and garlic mixed in that. Nowhere does this say.
The Gemara is going to answer that.
Is that what it says?
I'm going to see ahead.
Because I'm not looking on that side, and it doesn't say here.
You're right. Let's finish this note 12, because I want to just finish that. Rather, the truma component remains prohibited to a non-kohen as truma. And he receives lash for eating it. And since the truma component remains forbidden as truma, it is subject to being disqualified by the tashel tul yom. Nevertheless, since the truma component is not independent, but is blended with the main porridge, the law provides that only the spot touched becomes disqualified, not the entire porridge. So, so therefore,
Abaya is going to conclude his challenge.
Okay, so matame. What is the Rabbi Yochanan's reason for imposing lash on the non-Kohen who eats the truma spiced porridge in the amount of an olive's volume? After all, the person has not consumed an olive's volume of the truma itself. Why then is he subject to lashes? It must be because heter mitzaref iser, and the statement of Yochanan then contradicts the statement above, that the combination principle applies only to the Nazir's prohibition. You see here in a case of Truma and Chulin that he's going to mitzaref. Yochanan does not mean that one is liable for eating an olive volume of the porridge. Makazais, what does the Yochanan mean when he says that a non-Kohen receives lash for eating an olive volume? Ali? He
means that there's an olive's volume of the truma ingredients, the garlic and the oil, eaten in the time it takes to eat a peras of the porridge. A peras means half of the standard Mishnaic loaf of wheat bread.
But basically, there's a kazayas of the truma part, right? And he's eating that. He's eating that.
Within the time you need.
Right,
to eat,
like whatever it is, 3 minutes.
I didn't know that. If a guy eats like a kazayas over 12 hours, he may not be.
Right.
He might not be chayav.
There's a time component.
There's a time. Maybe that's why in Tisha B'Av they say drink less than A over the course of B time.
That's it.
So achilas pras. So he's eating this olive's volume in that time.
Yeah.
So therefore, the reason he's over is not because he's mixing permissible and forbidden, and that's why we give him lashes, and that's why Rabbi Yochanan says, in this case, he is over because he's actually eating a kazayas in that time. Frak the Gemara, vachilas prasta raisihi, and is eating an olive's volume of forbidden food within the time it takes to eat pras cause for liability according to biblical law? Right? I mean, he's giving lashes, right? But Frak Abaya, he wants to say, is this actually a deraisa?
I don't understand the problem. Yeah, of course.
Meaning this idea of eating a peras of the porridge, you know it to be deraisa. Eli Langer doesn't. Abaya is questioning, is this a deraisa? Meaning, maybe biblically, you need to eat it in one mouthful. This idea that you get to separate it out, mechatesi, it's deraisa. You're going to give him lashes? And for the Gemara Amar Lei, Rav Dimi says yes. The law of eating kazayas within the peras span is indeed midaraisa. Baya then questions, and he says, if so, my pligi Rabbanon Ali de Rabbi Elazar bechutach habavli. Why do the Chachamim differ, the Rabbanon differ with Rabbi Elazar concerning Babylonian kutach? As explained above, Babylonian kutach is a dip containing whey and breadcrumbs.
Stale breadcrumbs, no?
Which maybe.
Here we go. Where in the beginning or the end?
Where did we have the breadcrumbs?
We had that breadcrumbs, right?
Yeah, sure.
And it said, I just want to remember. I thought it said it was stale. That's all. It's a stupid thing that I'm checking right now, but
no, clarity. The Median beer, right?
Yeah. We wanted to drink it.
Here it is on the bottom of note 2.
Note 2.
36A1, note 2. It tells us Babylonian kutach, a type of dip containing whey and stale breadcrumbs.
Stale breadcrumbs.
And Median beer.
They're changing the recipe.
No, it's just brevity. It's not, as explained above, it's just talking about the key elements. Okay. Don't get lost in that.
I am lost.
Okay, Babylonian kutach is a dip containing whey and breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I thought you were starting
which Rebbe Lazar rules to be forbidden on Pesach by force of the pasuk, Kol mechmetzes leisachel, all leaven you should not eat. The Rabbanan, however, dispute Rebbe Lazar and hold that one is not liable for eating kutach on Pesach. Now, the consecration of breadcrumbs in kutach is high enough so that one who eats kutach steadily will eat a kazayas of bread within a paraspan. Why then, asks the Baya, should the Rabbanan rule that one is not liable for eating kutach on Pesach, even if they do not expand the pasuk of all as indicating a new prohibition of chametz mixtures? They should nevertheless consider one liable for eating kutach under the normative principles of biblical law, which according to Yomi states that one is liable for eating forbidden food contained in a mixture of ksais if the forbidden component is eaten with a paraspan. Accordingly, even the Rabbanan should agree that one who eats kutach steadily is liable to lashes, since he will have eaten a ksais of chametz within a paraspan. The key here is that eating achilas paras is a deraisa. And we know that Rebbe Lazar, that you're going to be usher from eating when kutach because you have the mixture, right? Once you have the mixture, you're going to get the lashes. The Rabbanan, however, say kutach is fine. The question is, though,
how is it fine?
How is that fine? Because if you're going to eat the breadcrumbs in kutach and it's high enough that you'll be eating a piece of a kazayas when the bread span, you're actually eating a full kazayas. I mean, the Chacham are already giving you, Rebbe Lazar is already giving you malchus because there's a mixture. But here, even according to the Rabbanan who said you need to eat a full kazayas, you're actually eating that kazayas.
Why are you eating that kazayas?
Why is he not getting lashes? Amar lei, hanach l'chutach habavli. Leave the case of Babylonian kutach aside, for in that case, there is no volume, olive's volume of chametz eaten with the time it takes to eat a paras, as Erdimi proceeds to explain. Okay, we'll figure that out. But the reason, according to Rabbanan, you're not over on eating a kazayas achilas paras is because your Havamina was wrong. You can't actually eat an olive's volume of chametz in the time of paras. Why? If he gulps the kutach, he eats it straight, not as a dip. His attitude is considered abnormal by almost any person. Imagine taking a dip from like seasons and just drinking it down. You don't do that. If he dips other food in it in the regular manner, you will not find that he eats an alzayim chametz within the time it takes to eat a paras. So the fact that you're dipping, according to the Rebbe Lazar, according to the Rabbanan, you can't combine it. They don't dash and call. And the fact that you're dipping it, you're going to be eating a kazayas? No. Because you're not going to be drinking the dip, you're going to be dipping it. And in that time, the chilas pras time, you're not actually going to be eating a kazayas. Azoizot, the beautiful Gemara, thank you Hashem. Should I feel guilty that I got it right away?
No.
No, because now, I didn't toil for it. I didn't work for it.
You
I did
worked
work
fine,
for it, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Such guilt. Sometimes the guilt is strong, Rabbi Binyomin.
I stopped trying to be guilty. I won't let it get me. I won't let it get me anymore.
Won't let you get you down.
You know?
Won't let him get you down.
It serves a purpose, but I think it does more harm than good.
I think we can get to Lam Zayin. I'm
All right.
optimistic.
Okay.
Okay, you go ahead.
I will go ahead. Asave. So Abaya continues to question Rav Dimi's assertion that eating...
How is it possible? This daf is so short, but yet we're only we're 30 minutes in, but we're still on the back of, just what happens? So because there's a lot of notes and
there's
it's different.
There's a lot to read. There's still a lot to read.
Right, okay.
Okay. Abaya continues to question Rav Dimi's assertion that eating an olive's volume of forbidden food within a prospan is cause for liability according to biblical. Esvei. Shtei medoiches. If there are two mortars.
Hold on, Rav Dimi said... Now I have to remember what Rav Dimi said. Rav Dimi was sitting there and saying, Rabbi Yochanan says about a Nazir. And Abaya challenged him and said, we have this other case. But now he's questioning Rav Dimi's assertion that eating an olive's volume of forbidden food within a paraspan is cause for liability. Okay, this whole rice is that thing. Okay.
Exactly. Okay, Shtei medoiches. There were two mortars, right? Those are those things in the bowl. What's a medoich? What's a mortar?
Mortar.
What is
I
that?
don't know. Were you saying you're crushing something?
Yeah, isn't that?
Oh, okay.
Mortar with a pestle. Okay. Achashel truma, achashel chul. Ulfanam shtei kederes. And in front of this were two pots. Okay. Achashel truma v'achashel chul. One containing food of truma and one containing... So basically he's probably going like this. V'naflu elu techela. And these fell into those. The spice contents of the mortars fell into the pots. But it is not known which spices fell into which pot. Thus, it is possible that it was the truma spices that fell into the pot of ordinary food, which in the case of non-Kohen would not be allowed to eat that food.
So what do you have? He had two bowls?
2 bowls and 2...
pots.
Well,
he's crushing...
Right, he's crushing up some spice.
In one bowl, let's say.
Well, and this crush of spice is for truma spices. He's got another one he's crushing of chulin.
For his first mistake.
He also has 2 pots. Right.
His first mistake.
Right.
Separate your milchiks and your fleishiks.
Right, exactly. Okay, maybe he had a pasha kitchen, And
the other one containing ordinary spices.
Right.
And in front of this were 2 pots.
Here we go. Yeah, 2 pots. And you got your 2 spices. Damn. I don't remember. Going chip, 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 chip. Now you should want like that. But maybe he mixed them up.
So he doesn't know which one's which, or it got mixed up together?
I think it says it got mixed up, and then he doesn't know which one went into which. And these, it says, no, these fell into those. Oh, it's not known which spices fell into which pot. Okay. It's poured, but no one knows which one went where. So, shtei and mutares, both pots of food are permitted. Their previous status remains unchanged. Certainly the pot of truma remains permitted to a Kohen, since he may eat the truma whether it was spice of truma or ordinary spices. That one makes sense. Right, a Kohen could eat any of them. The Bryce's main point is that the pot of ordinary food too remains permitted to a non-Kohen, even though it would be forbidden to him if indeed the truma spices fell into it.
Non-Kohen is not allowed to eat the truma.
Right.
So that's the issue.
Yeah. That is the issue. Tov?
So a non-Kohen... A Kohen can eat both.
Yeah.
A non-Kohen... The Bryce's main point is that the pot of ordinary food too remains permitted to a non-Kohen, even though it would be forbidden. Why would the pot of ordinary food remain permitted to a non-Kohen?
That we don't. That's what we're learning special.
It's only permitted if... No, right. It's only permitted if he knows there's no truma in it.
Right. So you're saying, how do you know? It's 50-50.
Both pots of foods are permitted to who?
So we're about to give a reason. So let's see.
No, it says...
Shem mutaris.
Shtei and mutaris.
We explained they're mutar even to a non-Kohen. Shani Aimer, chulin, let's say chulin, naflu. The order, that's what you say. Chulin, let's say chulin, naflu. You could just say that the chulin went to the chulin. U'truma, let's say truma, nafla.
Well, he's not sure. Why would you say that?
Okay, so, look at 09.
We're permitted to make
I was wondering if we were going to this. Very cool. We are permitted to make this arbitrary assumption, even though there is an even chance that it happened the other way around. Given the assumption that the truma spices fell into the pot of truma and the ordinary spices fell into the ordinary food, both pots, of course, permitted. It should be fairly obvious that the lenient assumption would not be allowed if we were dealing with the possibility of a biblical violation, because then suffik da'oraisa lechumra. Everyone knows that. The lenient assumption is appropriate only when in doubt in a matter of rabbinic law, since suffik d'rabbanan lekula. Thus, wherever we find the ruling of sha'ani yaimer applied to a situation in which the forbidden event is as likely as the permitted one, it must be that even in the worst possible event, only a rabbinic precept is violated. Hence, we are permitted to assume that it is the permitted event that happened. Now, in the case of truma spices, the Brisa permits us to assume that the truma spices did not fall into the pot of ordinary food, even though it is quite possible that they did. It must be then that even in the event that the truma spices did fall into the pot of ordinary food, that food would remain permitted to a non-Kohen on a biblical level.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why on a biblical? Oh, on a biblical level. It's only necessary to Rabban, right?
So you
this
see
is
from
the point
here
in which
that
the position is founded, as he proceeds to explain.
if the Gemara is not worried, then you see it's rabbinical.
On a deraisa level, it's fine. What are we asserting?
No.
What does that to do with the first passage? Sure.
Which should enter your mind to say kazayis b'chteichlis pras deraisa amayamrina shani omer. If you're going to say that eating a kazayas of forbidden food in the time it takes to eat a pras is cause for liability under biblical law, why over here did we say shani omer, which is a reference to a rabbinical?
Okay, and you need to do note 10. I mean, otherwise I don't see how this
the
sense.
assumption is that, because it's not the same thing, right? The assumption is that the volume of spices was at least an eighth the volume of the food, so that a kazayas of spices is contained within the paras of food.
So that, right, a kazayas of spices, which would be truma, potentially, is an achilas pras. And yet we're saying that it's fine on a deraisa level. You just told me before that achilas pras is deraisa, so how could it be
the
deraisa?
fact that the spices are going in and we're not worried, and it's a spices enough to meet the chdei pras requirements, you see over here it's rabbinical, not midaraisa.
Right. Since the ordinary food might contain truma spices in the concentration of the kazayas per pras, well, it gives us the right to assume arbitrarily that truma fell the pot of truma. This is not prove that.
It should be biblical.
Even the ordinary food does contain the proportion of truma that is permitted. Yeah. Okay.
Elamai. Heter mitzdarf le'eser. To say that the permissible combines with forbidden food, what is the alternative? Are you going to tell me then that in this case, the reason
it doesn't work flow because it's about to say, but then it's okay. So what else are you going to say here? That the heter's mitzdarf le'eser?
In which case? The spices?
This one, where the two spices fell into the pot.
You can't say heter mitzdarf le'eser, because then it would be biblical. Then you wouldn't say for I say.
Exactly. That's what the Gemara is about.
Okay, fine. I didn't understand.
Yeah, it's hard to read.
Ella hanach letrumas tavlin. Rather, leave truma of spices aside. D'Rabbanan he. The reason why we permit it in this case, even though you're right, it's in the time span of pras, is because
Here's a new
truma
law.
of spices is something different in the sense that it is we only say, like, you can't like take mice on salt, like, that type of thing.
Yeah,
but, like,
yeah.
When it comes to spices, that idea that it could have a din of truma is different entirely because it is
According to
d'Rabbanan.
biblical law, says note 13, the law of truma applies only to grain, wine, and olive oil.
Not spices.
Rabbinically, the obligation was expanded to include all edible fruits and vegetables. Accordingly, the spices discussed here are truma only on the rabbinic level.
Beautiful.
Esvei.
Abai presents another challenge to Rav Dimi. He's not going down quietly. There's a Bryce that says shtei kupas. If you have two boxes,
Ooh, I love the two kupas. Here we
two
go.
boxes, two wicker boxes, achas shel truma v'achas shel chulin, v'fnein shtei se'in, and in front of them were two se'ei containers filled with grain. Achas shel chulin v'achas shel truma, one containing ordinary grain and one containing truma. So you have 4 boxes. 2 of them are truma, 2 of them are ordinary grain. You have 1, 1, 1, 1. One's a box and one is a container.
Similar to our case before.
Yeah. But
the
in
mortars.
this case, no, in the other one you have, one was spices and it went into what?
A pot of soup.
Of soup. But in this case, it's not spices. You have a grain of truma and you have one ordinary.
So instead of soup, it's grain?
But in the other case, you had spice and some food substance.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's no spice. You have grain of truma, ordinary grain.
Okay.
And in front of that, you have...
Oh, it's grain and grain. All 4 of the grain.
You have 2 saw containers, one with grain and one... You have 2 boxes and 2 containers. And everything has grain. 2 of them are ordinary, 2 of them are truma. And these fell into these. The contents of the saw containers fell into the boxes. Shnein return. Both boxes of grain are permitted as before. The grain in the ordinary container fell into the box of ordinary grain. That eating an olive volume of forbidden food in the time it takes to process forbidden and punishable under biblical law. Why do we apply the principle for I say? For I say is something that is at the worst, the Rabbanan.
Oh, and now we're talking about grain.
Grain. You can't bring out the answer that says that's something special by spices.
Right.
Baya shows why the Bryce is supposed to differently, only according to Rav Dimi, not according to his own view. Now, the Bryce's application of the ruling for I say in the case is understandable according to me. But I say that Rabbi Yochanan meant that the 9 colon is liable for eating olive oil with the parts because the person all kinds of forbidden to the most real quantity. This combination was not applied to the present Bryce, going to Nifish Hulin, in a case where the ordinary produce is more abundant than the truma that might have fallen into it from the, say, container. So the reason why over here it's the Rabbanan is because even if you're do mitzvah, it's not going to combine to be a kazayas.
Ordinary, because the ordinary produce is more abundant. So you don't say it's like the hetzer's mitzarfel isser. I guess if one overpowers the other.
Yeah, the combination principle does not apply unless there's at least as much forbidden produce in the mixture as there's permitted produce.
That's interesting because
you can still have a kazayas.
But we were talking about cases of like spice into porridge.
Right.
That seems a very
very uneven. In that case, since the taste of forbidden food is detectable in the mixture, the combination principle.
The beginning of note 2 is that important part of it. Wait, did we do note 2 yet? Or you're reading?
No, I didn't. I skipped the beginning of note. Since the permitted and forbidden to a non-kain produce
are the same kind, min b'minai,
both wheat and both
barley.
The combination principle does not apply unless there's at least as much forbidden produce in the mixture. So when they're min b'minai, you need to have an even amount, relatively so, of the isser and the forbidden.
Right, in the previous case, however, such as the kutah, the porridge, the mortars, filled spice, the forbidden items were a different kind than the permitted food with which they were mixed. In that case, since the taste of the forbidden food is detectable in the mixture, the combination principle would apply even in the permitted food as dominant component. But here, since it's not detectable because it's the same min,
so according to me,
you can't say. Sorry, you can't say Mishum Heter.
You can't say mitzdaref. So that's why, according to me, when I say the ordinary produce is more abundant, I say the Heter mitzdaref le'isser. Here you don't have Heter mitzdaref le'isser because the ordinary produce is more abundant. But according to you, Rav Dimi, who say that Rabbi Yochanan meant that the non-kain is liable for eating an olive volume of porridge itself because there's an olive volume of forbidden matter eaten in the time it takes to eat a press of the mixture. What does it matter then? The present price of the case, the ordinary produce is more abundant.
Dimi.
So we have a brisa here that you have truma, an ordinary grain, and one falls into the other. In this case, we say that both are permitted. Now, if it should enter your mind that eating an owl's volume of forbidden food in the time it takes to eat a paras is forbidden and punishable under biblical law, why do we apply Shani Omer? According to you, Rav Dimi, who says that we take into consideration that if you can eat a kazayas, that it should be, then it's a deraisa. In this particular case, you are going to have a non-kayan. I'm sorry, you're going to have a non-kayan eat from here. Eat, and I don't care the fact that one is more than the other, because according to Rav Dimi, if you're chayv midaraisa, if you eat a kazayas in the time it takes to eat a paras of the mixture. So you're Rav Dimi. You say that midaraisa, you're not allowed to eat a kazayas in a certain time span. In this case, that meets the requirement. You're going to eat a kazayas of the grain, and still the brisa says it's only midrabanan. It says shani omer. According to me, I'm Abaye. The reason it's midrabanan is because I don't hold of this bichti achlias pras, and number two, when is it a deraisa? When you're mitzdarf la'isr. Here you can't be mitzdarf la'isr, because one's a lot more. They're not even amounts. So for me, it makes sense. That's why it's a derabanan. I'll do it again.
Went over my head a little bit.
No problem. Rav Dimi says, I'm sorry, Abaye says,
Bye.
when is the only time that you are going to get lashes in these cases is where it is mitzdaref la'isr.
You get lashes if it's Mitzaref L'Isr, okay.
But in this case,
What's the case where it's Mitzaref L'Isr?
mitzdaref la'isr is where you have...
Oh, like a kazayas of chametz, half a kazayas of chametz, half a kazayas of
Right.
It's, yeah. Okay.
Right, but it has to be an even amount.
Okay.
And over here, this brisa of the two boxes of grain and this and that, it says shani omer. It's only rabbinical.
So meaning it's mutter. He said it's mutter.
It's
Shani
mutter to
Omer.
eat. That works according to me, Abaye, that they're both mutter, and it's only asr midrabanan, because the only time you're asr is where it's mitzdaref la'isr. And in this particular case, you don't have mitzdaref la'isr
because it's two different sizes of a min.
Yes, there's more ordinary, there's more chulin than there is asr, than there is truma. So that's why, according to me, it works.
You won't say heter mitzaref l'Isr.
You won't say mitzdaref la'isr, and that's why it says shani omer.
That's why it says shani omer, because it's
only derabanan, yeah,
and that's why they're both mutter.
and that's why it's mutter, because we're not worried about the derabanan
Not
here.
both mutter. The chulin one is a mutter.
The chulin one.
You assume that chulin went to chulin, therefore you could a non-chulin could eat the chulin.
Correct. So according to me,
All right.
Abaye,
So sorry, Abaye was the one who said heter mitzaref l'Isr.
correct.
Okay.
According to you, Rav Dimi,
Yeah.
you have a problem here in this case, because it says shani omer, that it's only the derabanan deka isra, and that's why you're able to do it. But according to you, Rav Dimi, this case should be.
What did Rav Dimi hold again? He's the one.
He said that if you can eat a kazayas in an achilas pras,
right,
you're going to get lashes.
Right.
Here, why are you not getting lashes? Yes, in this case, there's more ordinary than not, but still, you're going to be eating an achilas pras. You're going to be eating a kazayas in an achilas pras, assumingly so.
Right. It doesn't matter that it's min b'mina.
It doesn't matter.
Barley.
Yeah, and there's going to be enough
There's going to be enough of that second one, even though it was a smaller amount. It's not going to be mixed.
Why?
in.
The box of grain had this, and the other one had 2 sa.
Right. So imagine one piece of barley, and if it was fully mixed in.
I don't know what the amounts are, but in this Havamina, it would have to be enough. There's enough of a kazayas.
You would eat it; it would get a chilkas.
But how, according to you, Rav Dimi Swerdlik, that it says Shani Omer that it's only rabbinical? It should be midrash. You should get lashes. I have a real problem with you, Rav Dimi Swerdlik.
I hear.
You understand?
I hear.
You might be LIA. You might be onto something by saying that no, there is no kazayas. I don't know if that's the answer. I didn't look yet.
I got you.
But you got the question. Marley said, leave aside truma nowadays, which is only rabbinic, therefore we can apply the rule for as I say.
Oh, so he changes everything.
Nowadays, while the conditions of exile still prevail, the requirement to separate truma even from grain, wine, and oil is only rabbinic precept. So initially we thought this case of the grain was a home run. You can't say that it's rabbinical because that's only in the spices. But nowadays we get even more lenient, and grain is only rabbinical, but back in the day, you're right, you would be getting lashes because you're going to be eating a kazayas, according to Rav Dimi, bichdei achilas pras.
Okay.
Good? Okay, so we're going to stop here. We're on Lamed Zayin. Next Hashem, we'll learn more tomorrow if you are available.
Tomorrow, what time? Morning?
Yep, Next Hashem. Thank you. We got to take a picture.